sidebar or a side, yeah, like the judges say, this is a little sidebar after we're talking about celebrity legal news. And who we're talking about the trial of Diddy. And so what I want to do in regards to that, there's several things that we have been going over today, uh specifically seeing Cassie on the stand, and everyone is talking about and listening to her testimony. And I heard a lot of people talking about, well, they hadn't seen the smoking gun as it is. And again, I will tell you all, if you are someone like me who enjoys watching this stuff, usually there is no smoking gun. There's just, it's just you taking in all the testimony and then coming up with a conclusion. And so that is what we're looking at people to do, is to take in the information and come up with a conclusion, right? But there's a lot of things that's been going on today, and people were talking about some things that a lot of people were like, as I say, poofing. In other words, we were hearing this stuff. We were hearing all of this salacious stuff, and people were like, well, the prosecution, it seems like they're overreaching. What is going on? Currently, Sean Diddy Combs is on trial for the racketeering, trafficking, and transporting people across lines to engage in the purpose of intercourse. All right. And so, as we're going into the third day, we've seen that Denny's proclivities, intercourse proclivities, are front and center. We've heard about the bathtub full of baby oil. We've heard about all these little different things, right? And in them of themselves, they are salacious, right? But the average person may be appalled in learning that his escapades may be salacious, but being a fan, a freaky ass ninja, within itself is not elite. That's not what we're here for. A lot of people are wondering what has triggered this prosecution. Some folks would say it's because he's a fan. He's a freaky ass ninja. Some folks will say it's because he's violent. And yes, those are things that will cause for the eyes of the feds to look at you. All right. They'll be the things that they would look at you. But for those two particular ideas, I say, no, that's not why we are here. This is not why he is being tried. There's only one reason that Sean Diddy Combs is on trial. And that is because the feds have said that he violated the MANN Act. So listen, in this video, we're going to explore what the MANN Act is and how it affects Diddy and how it'll affect you as an average Joe. All right. So let's just stay tuned. Okay. So you say, well, Pam, what is the MANN Act? I don't understand. I don't understand. So your girl loves. What does she love? How do I live my life day to day on this video? Your girl loves a good PowerPoint. A little visual aid, as you would say. I love a good visual aid. So let's do that. Let's go over in here, because on my live yesterday, I think I was hammering the point in, and I figured this is important that we need to have its own special video uh, to go over what this is. So again, here is my series of Don't Be Like Diddy. My first episode is for members only, and if you want to see that episode, consider to be a member. Uh, it gets you into becoming a member of this channel. You'll be able to see videos that I don't share regularly with the public. Also, you will also have the ability to be part of my members only live. I've had 2 of them so far, and they have been good. I would love to have more people, more members join, and then we can be able to discuss further the things that are going on in the cases, and we'll be able to use uh, the there'd be no code switching. How about that? All right, people, let's continue. So, don't be like Diddy, the MANN Act. First of all, the views and opinions expressed in this video are my own thoughts, concerns, and my analysis. I don't know these entities, persons or personalities, and I don't know them personally, but and my opinions are not statements of fact. They are just that, my opinions. And here is the copyright disclaimer. You all can peruse that at your leisure. There you go. All right. We will continue. And trigger warning, peruse those trigger numbers and pay attention to the numbers at the bottom. All right. So this is under my celebrity legal news. We're just again, this is a special series from the Diddy trial. You know, y'all don't be like Diddy. Don't be like Diddy. And what is Diddy on trial for? Well, we talk about what is the Mann Act, and let's go over that. The Mann Act, also known as the White Slave Traffic Act, is a U.S. federal law that criminalizes the transporting of people across state lines for the prostitution, the ex trafficking, according to legal information. Specifically, it makes it illegal to transport someone across state lines for the purpose of engaging in prostitution, debauchery, or other immoral acts. Now, initially, this law was originally to combat white slavery. Now, what was white slavery? That was the trafficking of women for the purpose of prostitution and any debauchery or any of those things. Now, this law was enacted back in 1910. Chattel slavery was made illegal back in the 1800s. So, but what they were finding was because of the fact that there was a huge quote unquote white slavery trade going on in North Africa, in the Middle East, and also in Europe. And so, for the people in the United States to combat that, according to them, back then, they enacted this act. Now, this act was also, if you listen to the wording, there is also a wording called debauchery. All right. And it says here, what is the definition of debauchery for the feds? To debauch is to corrupt in morals or principles, to lead astray morally into dishonest and vicious practices, to corrupt, to lead into unchastity, to debauch. Debauchery refers to excessive indulgence in sensual pleasures, often involving immoral behavior like drinking, drugs, or promiscuity. It is a term often used to describe wild partying and in uninhibited behavior. Now, I'm reading that information off the Wikipedia. And so I want you to understand that this is federal terminology. Let me share my screen so that you can see what I am reading. All right. This is what I'm reading. This is the information. Now, does some of this stuff sound familiar? They prescribe debauchery as an overindulgence, sexual immorality, and drug use. Now, again, these are the terminologies and things that are present under the Mann Act. And what is the main purpose of the Mann Act? And this is what I read off on my live. So it says, does the Mann Act have a statute of limitations? Now, this is interesting. I didn't think about this when I started this video. For example, the statute of limitations for violating the Mann Act, which prohibits transporting individuals across state lines for the purpose of prostitution, is 5 years from the date of the commission of the crime. So you say to me, Pamela, wait a minute. They got Cassie on here, and the crime that she talks about is more than 5 years ago. True. But remember, they have more than Cassie. They have someone that's supposed to be testifying that the statute is not violating. They've got a couple of people, and maybe that was a concern why they couldn't find victim number 3. And where is victim number 3? But I guess this other victim is more than enough. I believe they're using Cassie to show that this is behavior that he's been doing for years. Now listen to this. The Mann Act was amended in 1978 to expand its application to boys and also girls. So it's also now it's persons, and they extended to the word minors. All right. So I needed for us again to reread this with the amended language. The Mann Act has made it a crime to transport individuals across the state line for the purpose of prostitution or debauchery or for any purpose. I hope we're clear about what is the Mann Act. It was initially intended to combat forced prostitution, but has a broad scope that has led it to its use in various cases, including those involving consensual sexual activity and political persecution. The MANN Act's purpose is aimed to prevent the interstate transportation of individuals for immoral purposes, primarily prostitution and human trafficking. The law prohibits transporting anyone across state lines for prostitution or debauchery. And that word is very important because we talked about that debauchery. Now, this law was enacted during a period of societal anxiety about quote unquote white slavery and was influenced by international treaties to suppress human trafficking. Oh, we have an amendment in 1986. The law was amended to clarify that interstate transportation for legal, non commercial sexual activity was no longer a federal offense. Great to hear. Current use today to combat human trafficking and prostitution. Okay. So, this is what's going on in regards to the Diddy case. All right. He is being tried under the MANN Act. And what are the specific things that they're looking for as the prosecution? Is there any prostitution? Well, it has been confirmed that he does hire and pay for folk for sex. Now, in the trial, we've only heard that it was, as far as the exchanging of payments, it has been Cassie who's been paying the people. Apparently, it's cash in hand. There is no, doesn't sound like there's any credit card or anything like that. Hey, this is Pam from the future. I wanted to add in this in between is the fact that the prosecution did point out that Diddy used his company to pay for the airfare for the prostitutes from New York to Spain to Los Angeles and what have you. But according to Cassie, the money was Diddy's because at this point she didn't have a job. Because remember, she signed a 10-album deal with only one album coming out. Here are the charges that Diddy has been faced with: racketeering and conspiracy. That's with the RICO. That's a totally different charge. But the count 2, count 3, count 4, and count 5 is falling under the MANN Act. So what's the penalty for it? The maximum penalty for violating the MANN Act is 10 years in prison and a fine. And again, I wrote down here the MANN Act was passed during a period of puritanical moral panic at the turn of this 20th century. And why were they panicking? That's all I'm going to say. All right. Why is all this important? Why is all this thing? Oh, Pam, you're being treacherous. You're being all this other stuff. Well, listen to me. We are sitting here in a wave. Now, I have to preface this because some of you all like to be obtuse, but I am trying to educate you. And it's not about these gender wars that you all practice into. It's about being Black folks and being armed with information. All of this information that I'm talking about, you definitely can look it up on Google. And yes, I know that it's free. But again, I wanted to bring this up in a coherent video because I really do want us to understand what is going on. Now, people always want to go through here and say, oh, they're trying to keep the the Black man down. They always finding things. If you are someone whose pride and reputation is important to you, but you have certain proclivities that would be considered out here in the world to be a little fanish, freaky ass ninjas, I need you to be listening. If you are the person that has the financial means to hop on planes, trains, and automobiles at a moment's notice to go out of town to pay for folks to go out of town to get flued out, all of these little different things. If you're that person, I need you to pay attention. If you're one of these thousands of professional athletes, football, basketball, soccer, or football, volleyball, track and field, Olympians, it doesn't matter. If you are an actor, an actress, a singer, a songwriter, a rapper, if you are someone whose occupation gives you the financial means to be able to use plane, trains, and automobiles at any specific time, plus the fact that you have certain proclivities that need to be satiated, you need to be paying attention to this law. You also need to be paying attention with the company that you keep and this law. You need to pay attention to what you post on social media, because a lot of us like to post who, what, when, where, how, why, and what for on these internet streets. We got to have pictures. We got to have your soliloquies about why you're posting what you're posting. We got to hear your monologues about the haters. We have to hear all of these different things while you're showing everybody what you have, who you're with, what you're doing, and where you're doing it at. If you're someone like that, this video is for you. Pay attention to the MANN Act. So what do they have Diddy on? They're saying that Diddy is paying for the prostitute. That's illegal. Not only is he paying for the prostitutes, he is transporting them, paying for them to be transported via his companies, which then goes back to the racketeering, because he is using his enterprise, his businesses, to further these criminal activities. So you have flued out the prostitutes to participate in the free cops, and you have used your economic enterprise of your businesses with your assistants, with your security guards, to be able to provide the tools and the hardwares so that you can further this debauchery, aka the freak offs. Again, counts 2 through 5 are falling under the MANN Act. Count 1 is saying you are using your financial enterprise, your businesses, to further what's going on in count 2 through 5. And that's in violation of the MANN Act. And here's an interesting thing I needed you to understand about the MANN Act and why, for Black folk, particularly Black men, this has been such a serious act, and this is why it's so easy for you all to get it. You know, the MANN Act back in the day was used to prosecute those in interracial relationships. Now, I understand that now it's illegal, but it's still used for political persecution and the transportation for minors for immoral purposes. Please understand that. So who does the MANN Act target? Everyone, but particularly those folks who travel from state to state, not state to state, but it's state to state and overseas for the express intention to engage in the prostitute and the prostitute. and all that adds to that. So there's a particular segment of our population right now that you are packing up your bags, you are going over, getting all the paperwork together so that you can go to certain places like the Colombias and the Thailands of the world to participate in the debauchery and the prostitute. And some of you all are going with the express intent to then bring somebody back from those particular areas and back into the United States to continue it all. That's all I'm going to say about that. You need to be paying attention to this act. Some of you all that want to make a little change for something strange, particularly for basketball season and the All-Star games, and you allow people to fly you out, and or ain't no fun unless your homegirl can make that bag too. She a little broke right now, but you buy her a plane ticket. Because y'all finna get it. You need to be paying attention to this act. Who am I talking to? Okay. All right. So here's some famous people that were prosecuted and targeted under this act. We have Jack Johnson. Now, Jack Johnson was the first African American heavyweight boxing champion. And shout out to Ichid. Now, he explained to me that he was prosecuted after he had passed away. We have Charlie Chaplin. Now, if you're not familiar with Charlie Chaplin was a comedian, and he was a big comedian during the silent film era. Now, he was prosecuted under this act, but they say that he was later acquitted in a case stemming from a paternity case, and some believing it was motivated by some political reviews. Remember, they used it for that. We have Chuck Berry. If you remember Chuck Berry is was one of the pioneers of rock and roll. He was convicted of transporting underage girls across the state line, and also was linked to prostitution. Mormon fundamentalists. You remember when the FDLS, what was that man's name with the glasses? He was convicted, and I believe he's still in jail. I can't remember what his name was. You know, the people with the long dresses and the long hair. He was convicted under this Mann Act. They say here Charles Manson. Now, if you're not familiar with Charles Manson, there is a book called Helter Skelter. You can look that up. But Charles Manson, back in the 60s, was he was a famous leader of the Manson family, and he uh, uh, had a cult following, and he convinced his cult to go out and prune from the timeline very famous actors. If you are familiar with an actor named, was it Roman Polanski? I believe it. So his wife was pruned from the timeline in all of this, and also plus Roman Polanski. If it's the same person I'm speaking on, he's also a fan. He was charged for immoral acts with someone under 14. He was convicted by the state of California. He left the state, and he's currently living overseas, and they have not expedited him back because he has a sentence that he has not carried out. And Ghislaine Maxwell, we know her. She's currently sitting up in the jail. She violated this. She was Epstein's plug, Prince Andrew's plug. And now we have Sean Combs, who is being tried under this. All right. That's the end of my PowerPoint. I'd be so sad when my PowerPoints end. But I need you all to understand and be so very for real. This act affects you. And this is what we're seeing, that the prosecution is on the road to prove. So I wanted to put this out there because I do want you all to see what we're talking about in regards to why Sean Diddy Combs is on trial. All right, people. We do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Have I done an okay job of explaining to you what the Mann Act is? Y'all, please tell a friend, tell a kin, tell a coworker, tell that heifer that you can't stand that I'm over here making these videos. And as always, people, bye-bye.